So today it's quite a dark and rainy day, as you can probably hear. So I'm in the garage working on the Brooklands fishtail that goes on the end of the exhaust pipe. This is the pipe I'll be using, which is 1.25 inch diameter. And I'm making this in two halves. I've made the first half here just out of some 1mm steel that's been folded over. And this is a fairly simple sort of cutting and folding exercise. I've got it marked out on some steel here. You can see it's got all these perforations on one half, so I've gone ahead and marked all of those, and I've center punched them with the automatic center punch, and then I will drill all of those out using a center drill here, just because it's quite short and stubby. Unfortunately, this one isn't very sharp, so it's not leaving very nice holes, but with a bit of cleanup it works okay. So I will trim this out, drill all the holes, and then we'll have a look at how I fold it. So I now have this cut out and I have all the holes drilled. There's 146 of them. And if you look closely, you can see that I've been very careful to maintain that slightly dodgy hand drilled look by drilling it by hand slightly dodgily. I have it now set up in the pan brake, so I'm doing the fold at the bottom first, and you can see I've removed some of the fingers, and the reason for that will be obvious after I've done this fold. So what I do is I fold this up, and then I take it over to the bench and I fold that flange all the way back to 180 degrees and hammer it down onto itself. So with it folded over, you can see it's a simple matter just to hammer that flange over. I use my machined 45-degree block, tap it down to that, and then just tap it all the rest of the way down. So the reason why I had to remove the fingers either side of this becomes obvious now. To get this next fold along here, because I've already folded the bottom, I don't want to clamp down on there, because if you try to fold it by clamping all the way across, you're only going to be clamping it at this end, and when you try to bend it up, this will just move, it'll just shift inside the folder. So I clamp on the flat piece, so it's clamped all the way along, and then I bend it up. So this is all folded up now. You can see, because you're folding, if it'll focus on it, because you fold a double piece, you end up with a slightly distorted edge. So when I made these, I allowed a little bit extra on the edges so that I can use the body file here to file those flat. And it needs to be a bit narrower at that bottom end anyway. So I can file those flat, and then the two halves will get welded together sort of like that. Now these are built to the original Brooklands spec. So for the size of engine that the Austin 7's got, they can be 6 inches wide across the end and 6 inches long. And the opening here at the end has to be 1/4 inch wide. And you can have as many of these 3/32 holes as you want in the aft half of the fishtail. I don't know what difference these holes are going to make, to be honest. I've not made one of these before, so I was thinking of making two, one with holes and one without, but then I realized I can just tape over these holes temporarily, see if it makes any difference to the sound. Okay, this thing is finished now. I was going to use a piece of pipe on the outside here that went around the pipe I'm going to use as the exhaust. So this is the diameter of the pipe that I'm going to use as the actual exhaust pipe, which is 1.25 inches. And I did want a piece of tube that would fit over that, but I didn't have anything that was suitable. I did weld up a little tube from some sheet steel, but 1mm is the thickest I had, and that seemed a bit too thin. So instead I've gone with this, which is actually a sliding fit into the tube. I guess the little restriction there from being on the inside diameter probably isn't going to matter. And then all I need to do is put a slot in the in the end of the exhaust pipe, and then I can put a clamp around it to hold that in place. But that was just TIG welded around. What I did was trim the end off the triangular piece and then made a circular opening into there. What I really need to be able to do that is sort of like a conical type stake, which would be really handy. But I don't have anything like that. But what I've found works reasonably well in the past is the ball end of a ball peen hammer. You can push that into the metal and then hit the other end of it, and that'll round out the end of the pipe, the end of the steel like that. After welding it, I actually put it through the sandblaster just to clean it up a bit and to key the surface a little bit, and then I put it in an acid bath just to get rid of any rust on the inside. And I've just wiped it down with this Penetrol stuff, which is really a paint additive. You're supposed to add it to paint to make it flow better, but you can also use it over rust. You can put it over rust and then paint over the top of it and things like that. So I've been finding that works reasonably well, just to wipe down bare steel parts until I'm ready to paint them. I don't think it works quite as well as the old Keyphos, but I haven't been able to find any more of that. So this has come out reasonably well, I think. As usual, my welding isn't 100% the best. Looks like there's holes there, but they're not. There's just sort of surface pitting. But hopefully that should do something. And again, I'm not sure exactly where this will come out on the car. Given where the pipe needs to run, it's going to be down under here somewhere, I think. Probably something like that. It just depends where exactly that pipe needs to end up. So tomorrow I will paint this with some high temperature paint. This is the paint I've been using. This works really well and it dries nice and hard. As I say, it's not petrol proof though, so you have to be a bit careful if you're using it in the engine bay and you get fuel on it. If you do, don't wipe it off because it'll wipe the paint off. But if you leave it and the fuel evaporates, it seems to be okay. But that's another little job done.